Hello, North Haven, and welcome to this edition of Sports Talk. I'm Jeremy Farina here with Holden Prelli and Justin Paolillo. Today we're going to start the show off with a little bit of the NFL. Obviously, the Seahawks, the reigning Super Bowl champions, they've been dealing with a little bit of adversity in the last couple of weeks, obviously the latest being a loss at KC. So I'm going to go around the panel here. Holden, do you think the Seahawks are done, or do you think that they can come back from this loss?
I definitely think the Seahawks are done for this season, just for the fact that they're in the NFC West. And the NFC West is a very competitive division. Right now you have the Cardinals atop at 9-1. Then you have the 49ers. And then you have another team like the St. Louis Rams, who just beat the Denver Broncos, who are obviously led by one of the best quarterbacks of all time, Peyton Manning. So that division is just so competitive that I think, just like we were talking about last week's show about the SEC West and how the SEC, all the teams cannibalize each other, the same thing can be said about the NFC West. I think all those teams still have to play each other twice in the season, and they're just going to end up beating each other all up. And possibly, I think the Cardinals are the only team that are going to make the playoffs. And if I was to say another team out of that division, it would most likely be the 49ers, who just beat the Giants after showing a dominant defensive performance, intercepting the ball 5 times and obviously forcing, I think, 1 or 2 fumbles. So I love this 49ers team. I love the Cardinals. I just don't think the Seahawks have enough depth and enough talent on their squad right now and the discipline to make a run.
I'm going to agree with Holden here. I think the Seahawks are done. A big reason why I think they're done, like Holden said, they're in that tough NFC West division. Also, we've debated on the show before. I don't think Russell Wilson is an elite quarterback by any means. I think he's keeping them back. I mean, they've been carried by their defense the past couple years, especially when they won the Super Bowl last year. So I think if you put Russell Wilson on any team with a mediocre defense, he's not even going to come close to the numbers he's putting up. And people were talking about him for MVP, but this is all his defense carrying him, and then Marshawn Lynch. But I mean, this year, another reason is Marshawn Lynch hasn't been contributing. There's been some in the locker room issues, and they're getting hurt from within. So I just think this team's going down a bad path. And like Holden mentioned, I think the Cardinals will come away with this division. But I'm going to go with the St. Louis Rams as possibly being another team fighting for that. I think they're going to go on a winning streak here and possibly in a wild card. But it's funny because we've always said that this division was one of the best in the league, but there might only be one team, when originally at the beginning of the season I'm sure most people would have said I think 2 teams are going to come out of that and make the playoffs. But right now I think it's going to be one, being the St. Louis Rams winning that. I think the Arizona Cardinals winning. I think the Seahawks are done. And then I think if a team was going to compete with the Cardinals, it would be the St. Louis Rams.
I'm not going to say the Seattle Seahawks team is done. They just came off a Super Bowl win, and regardless of if they don't have Percy Harvin on the offensive side now, he really hasn't been doing much since he got into Seattle, and now that he's gone, I don't think that their offense is getting severely hurt like a lot of people thought they were. I mean, they're still able to do decent. I mean, they never were really an offensive team. They did rely on their defense. I think that Marshawn Lynch is obviously there. He's such a good running back. He's such a key part of that offense, and obviously rumors that he's not going to be in Seattle next year, but for now he's there. I mean, it's not like this team is a 4-6 team right now. They're still 6-4. They still got a winning record. You know, obviously they're going to be playing in that tough NFC West, but I don't think the 49ers looked all that great. I mean, 16-10 to a Giants team that not a lot of people are really impressed with. I think that they could have won more convincingly. They made a lot of bad plays on offense. Frank Gore fumble, something you don't normally see from him. And then obviously the Giants, they're not the biggest team, so I don't think that was, even though they did get the win, I don't think it was a convincing one for me. Obviously the Cardinals do look like how Justin said they were going to run with the division, but I didn't necessarily believe it at first, but they have been playing well. But I'm not going to count this team out. I mean, it does look like they made the NFC West may not be getting 2 teams out of it just because, you know, you look at the North and you have teams like the Packers and the Lions, that both 2 teams that couldn't make it. Then you look at the NFC East with the Cowboys and Eagles, so those could be the 2 wild cards there, regardless of who wins the division and whatnot. But I still can't count the Seahawks team out yet, just because they have so much left. I mean, obviously they don't have the greatest offensive weapons, but I think they could get it done with Jermaine Kearse and Doug Baldwin, and then Marshawn Lynch is obviously going to be the heart and soul of that offense. But I'm not going to count them out just yet. I think I'd need to see them lose maybe 1 or 2 more games before I'm considering this team done.
And another thing, just quickly mention about the Seahawks, is that earlier in the year we talked about how they lost a lot of key veterans to free agency, guys like Chris Clemens, Red Bryant, and Michael Robinson. And ever since, we talked about how the Seattle locker room is reported to have discipline issues. I mean, every other week, Marshawn Lynch is doing something that you kind of scratch your head and wondering, why is he doing that? Like, just recently, he didn't report to the locker room during halftime. And then Percy Harvin gets traded and leaves the team for reported discipline issues. And then you hear stuff like people in the Seattle locker room don't think Russell Wilson's black enough. So discipline issues like these coming out of the Seattle locker room are another reason why I think not only being in a competitive division is why Seattle's struggling, but also they can't seem to find someone to rally this team towards a common cause.
I agree.
Moving on, we're going to talk about the AFC and NFC. Both seem to be rather open right now. It doesn't seem like there's really any favorites on either side. So we're just going to have each of the panelists here choose a AFC champion and an NFC champion. Justin, we'll start with you.
For me, I'm going to go with, do you have any preference which one I start with? Or I'll start with the AFC. I'm going to go with the New England Patriots. I mean, they're coming off that big win on last night, which we had the show Monday, so it was last night. And I think this team, I mean, obviously, like we said, the Broncos lost to the Rams, and Peyton Manning wasn't looking too good. I mean, but it is Peyton Manning, so he could turn it around. So I'm not counting the Broncos out yet, but if I'm going to go from this week right now, today, I'm going to go with the New England Patriots in the AFC. I mean, Tom Brady's got much more weapons this year. I mean, Danny Amendola's back. Robert Gronkowski's playing very well this year, and I just think that if they could bring it together, they'll be fine. And like you mentioned, who is that Patriots running back who kind of came out of nowhere last night?
Jonas Gray.
Jonas Gray. I mean, it seems like these running backs are coming out of nowhere. I mean, for all we know, he could have a horrible week next week. But if he stays strong and has a good week like he did this week, I mean, the Patriots are a very good team, and I think they're the best team right now. For the NFC, I'm going to go with a team that we've mentioned a lot in the show, the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, I just think they're in a really weak division, so they're definitely going to get into the playoffs, no doubt. And I think with the leadership of Andrew Luck, and I think if their running game stays healthy with Trent Richardson, I think this team, and Reggie Wayne with the veteran leadership, T.Y. Hilton on the wing, I think this team's going to be very good, and I think they're going to make a run for the playoffs. I don't necessarily think this team will be, I don't think this will be the Super Bowl matchup, Colts-Patriots, but I definitely think as of right now, this is the best team. Those are the best two teams in their respective divisions, or conferences, sorry.
Yeah, definitely for the AFC, I'll have to go, like you said, with the Patriots. The Patriots are red hot right now. Their offense is functioning at an all-time high. Tom Brady looks great. Julian Edelman looks great. Gronk is playing like an animal right now, and that defense is doing just enough to help win ball games. So for the AFC, I'll have to go with the Patriots. For the NFC-wise, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, after saying relax to Packers Nations weeks ago, has also in comparison to Tom Brady, had an all-time high of a year. He's looking great. The offense is looking great. And the defense is doing well enough to win ball games. So I think come playoff time, you need to have a stellar quarterback running your team, and the Green Bay Packers have one in Aaron Rodgers.
From the AFC, obviously, it's easy to go with a team like the Patriots being so red hot. But, I mean, if you are to look elsewhere, I mean, you still have the Denver Broncos there despite being on a 2-game losing streak. I mean, these were away games, tough environment. You go into New England, obviously that's never an easy win. And then, St. Louis is kind of an underrated place to play. It's a domed area. You get a lot of fans in there, and it gets loud real quick. And they're going to pack the stands for a Denver Bronco game. I mean, the St. Louis team is kind of the way they play. It seems like the games are supposed to win. They really don't play well. And then when a big-time opponent comes in, I mean, you saw with the Seahawks earlier in the season, the 49ers as well, they seem to just take it to another level and just become a team that, that is a force to reckon with. And then, next week they might lose to a team like the Titans or someone you're not expecting it to. So I'm not going to cut the Broncos out just yet. I mean, the weapons they have with Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas. I mean, Wes Welker, if he can start turning things around, that's just another guy they could throw the ball to. And then, they do have running backs injured right now, and Monte Ball got hurt in the St. Louis games after coming back from being out a couple games. And C.J. Anderson's been playing pretty well. So I think that this team could definitely still be successful in the coming future. And then you look at a team that Justin said, the Colts as well. I mean, T.Y. Hilton's been playing very well this entire season, really. And then, Reggie Wayne's been kind of struggling, but he's a veteran. I think he's going to figure it out. And then the tight ends they have in Dwayne Allen and Cody Fleener. I mean, there's a lot of weapons on that team as well. I think the Colts' only problem right now is their defense. I think that if they can just work on that and get that to where it needs to be, that they can definitely be a successful team. If you're looking at the NFC, I mean, there's two teams in the NFC North that are looking very good right now, the Packers and the Lions. The Lions with Matthew Stafford, obviously hasn't been in the playoffs much. He lost to the Saints in one of the years he was in. Obviously, they had to go on the road to play them, so it's hard to beat the Saints at home. But I think that team definitely could be ready to really become a factor. I mean, that defensive line's very good. You have Nam Kitsu, Nick Fairley, and then Matthew Stafford, Calvin Johnson, and Golden Tate was obviously the big addition for them. One of the more underrated signings this offseason. And then Green Bay. There's so many weapons. It's so hard to cover all those guys. Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, even guys like Eddie Lacy have been catching balls out of the backfield. So it's definitely going to be hard to stop an offense like that. And their defense has been playing pretty well. So there's a couple teams in each conference that could definitely be factors moving on. If I'm going to pick two, I'd probably say from the NFC, I'd probably go with the Packers. And the AFC, I think I'm going to go with the Broncos still. I still think that they're the best team in the division, or in the conference. Moving on, we're going to talk about the MLB offseason. Obviously, there have been a couple of moves made so far. We're just going to get a general reaction to the offseason. Right before that, we do have a call-in. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hey, guys. First time, long time. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I want to talk about the fantasy duds as long as you're on the football topic.
Okay.
I have Calvin Johnson and I have Vernon Davis, and I am completely frustrated.
Okay.
I'd like to know what you guys think about that, all right?
Absolutely. Thanks for your call.
Thanks, buddy.
Just for Calvin Johnson, I think it's kind of an injury problem for him. Obviously, he hasn't been healthy all year, so it's kind of hard to rely on him. And Vernon Davis is kind of the same thing. They've kind of both been hurt all season. Obviously, it's frustrating as a fantasy owner to draft these guys in early on rounds and then have them be out all year. But it seems like when Calvin Johnson's in the lineup and he's not limited like he was against the Jets or a team like that, it seems like he's always able to grab a touchdown, maybe 100 yards. It seems like he's always having a good game when he's 100% or at least close to it. Vernon Davis, there's so many weapons in that offense. It's kind of hard to get everyone the ball, where in Detroit it's really just Calvin Johnson, and it's kind of been that way the last few years. I mean, now they do have a Golden Tate in the lineup, so it's not as one-dimensional as it was before. But I think both those guys, it's kind of hard to assess them just because they were both hurt the majority of the year.
Yeah, definitely Calvin Johnson, it's mainly an injury concern. The guy's been injured all year. And for Vernon Davis, I agree with you, Jeremy. It's a combination of injuries and the fact that there's so many offensive weapons on the San Francisco 49ers, from Crabtree to Frank Gore to Stevie Johnson to Brandon Lloyd and to Vernon Davis. There's just too many weapons, and Colin Kaepernick needs to distribute the ball evenly. So I'll have to attribute injury and a lack of opportunity for Vernon Davis' struggles. And another guy who I think is struggling is Jay Cutler. I mean, Jay Cutler is having an awful year. He's just being turnover prone, and he's not winning big games, and he's not producing the numbers. A year after being a part of an offense under Mark Trestman that produced behind the Denver Broncos, they were the second highest scoring offense in the league. So he's another fantasy dud for me.
I'll focus on the two that he mentioned there. Calvin Johnson, I think you definitely would never drop somebody like this or even sit him. I think you have to start him every week that he's playing, just because this guy can go off any week and very much help your fantasy team. But I agree with you guys both, for both players, him and Vernon Davis, that injuries are accountable. And I like what Holden said with Vernon Davis, where there's so many weapons around him where he's not going to get the ball that much. I mean, he'll get the ball because he is a dominant player, but if, say, he goes to a team like the Raiders, I mean, I'm sure this guy's going to be playing out of his mind, and he's going to be a fantasy stud. But since he's on the 49ers, he's going to struggle to get catches and whatnot. So if you're going to drop any of those two or maybe sit somebody, I'm going to go with Vernon Davis. But I think both those players could have a solid comeback, and they're both top elite fantasy players when they're at their top level of play. So we'll see what happens. I wish the best of luck for your fantasy team going forward. And thank you for your call, by the way.
I mean, you look at some of the other people that you can assume are duds, I guess you could say. My father was killed by LeSean McCoy, drafted him in the first round, and he's basically produced probably like 7 points a game, points per week.
For a first round, that's not good.
And for a first round pick, you need at least 12, 15 points per week, especially in fantasy football where you get one game a week. So that was probably a killer. A guy I picked up in I think the 8th or 9th round, Keenan Allen. I was expecting him to be the number one receiver for San Diego, and I think he's gotten like 1 or 2 touchdowns all season. I mean, he's a great receiver, does what he has to do for the team, but fantasy-wise, kind of a disappointing year for him. Moving on, we're going to talk about the MLB offseason and some of the moves that have gone on. Just some basic reactions from each of us. I think Holden was going to start.
Yeah, I definitely liked the move by the St. Louis Cardinals to trade to trade Shelby Miller for Jason Hayward and other assets. I mean, Jason Hayward just won another Golden Glove. He's a stud defensive player, and he's a pretty decent hitter. And right now, that in any sport, it's a win-now league. Every team isn't worried about winning the World Series in 5 years. They're worried about winning it as of the next coming season. So I think Jason Hayward's a great pickup. He's going to be a free agent, I think, 2 years away, so you still have him under contract for a lengthy period of time to evaluate him. And Shelby Miller is a considerable loss. He's 24 years old. He's a young pitcher with a lot of potential. His rookie season, he was pretty good. He had a ERA about like 2.3, but he struggled this year. I think his ERA increased to about 3 or 4. So obviously second season struggles, a sophomore slump, but I expect him to have a better year next year. But obviously it's a win-now league, and you go with who's producing right now, and that's Jason Hayward.
I'm going to agree with Holden as Jason Hayward being the best offseason move. I'm saying move, not really re-signing, because, I mean, Miami with the big deal just a couple days ago. Yeah. And so I think it's Jason Hayward. I mean, like Holden said, like, you want to win right now. And the Cardinals, I mean, this team could win any year they play. I mean, they're just they have good history, good management, a good organization. So this team could win any year. And if you get a guy like Jason Hayward to come into your team, I mean, like Holden said, a solid hitter, great defensive player. He's a leader. He's a veteran in the league. So I think it can only help this team. And they got some young players on that team, but they have a mix of veterans in there too, with Matt Holliday, Matt Adams at first base, and I just think this team's going to be very good next year. And Jason Hayward is a very good signing. But I'm also interested, hasn't happened yet. I'm interested what the Royals do with James Shields. I mean, he is expected to get big money this offseason. Is a free agent. Royals fans are worried. Are we going to re-sign him? I mean, I don't know. After what he did in the World Series, really didn't get it done as your ace pitcher. So we'll see if the Royals fans even want him back. But this guy's going to get big money, and hopefully he can go to a good team and revitalize his career.
I mean, yeah, the St. Louis move I think a lot of people are going to like, just because it seems like this team never makes a mistake. I mean, they lose Albert Pujols, and a lot of people thought they weren't going to make postseason. They ended up doing well. I mean, I can't remember a National League Championship Series where I haven't seen either a San Francisco Giant team or a St. Louis Cardinal team in the NLCS. So it seems like those teams, in particular the Giants and the Cardinals, both seem to always make the right moves in the offseason or whether it's at the trading deadline or whatever it is. But I'm interested what the Giants will do with Pablo Sandoval as well, if they're going to give him the money that a lot of people around the league feel he deserves, or if he'll end up possibly in Boston. It seems like that's been the really hot spot for him so far. I will have to say, though, I like the Cubs getting Joe Maddon. Just, this is a Theo Epstein team who's going to, try to reverse this curse like he did in Boston. Obviously, they haven't won in so long, a World Series, that is. But I like the move. I think that it's going to intrigue a lot of stars. I mean, rumors that they're going after Russell Martin and John Lester and some aces out there. So I'll be interested to see how quick this Cubs turnaround could possibly be. I mean, a lot of people thought it would be, 5-year process, and it looks like, they could potentially be contenders within the next couple of years if Joe Maddon and the general manager is able to do it right. But I'm really not a fan of the John Carlos Stanton deal to Miami. I don't think it's that. It's not that the guy doesn't deserve the money. I just don't think that's the right place for him. I don't see this team being a contender anytime soon. I don't think they have really. I can't remember the last time they've been in the postseason. I think it was when they won the World Series in 2003, I believe, against the Yankees. But it just seems like this isn't the right spot for him. I feel like it would have been better if he were to have been traded, or if they could have maybe let him go just to save the money. I don't think people are going to be intrigued to come to Miami like they are intrigued to go to like a Boston or a New York. I think that overall, I think that's just a bad move, and that it's not gonna bring the postseason to Miami. But moving on, we're going to shift gears and head to the NBA. Have some discussions on who we feel, or what, either whether it be a team or an individual, what the biggest flop so far is of the season. Justin, we'll start with you.
For biggest flop of the year, I'm going to go with Chandler Parsons on the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, this guy was having such high expectations. I mean, you could even look at it from a fantasy perspective. This guy's supposed to be a top 25, top 30 player. I mean, he's been barely making the top 100. Not to mention, I mean, his numbers, he's averaging about 12 points a game. He should be averaging about 20 a game with, 8 or 9 rebounds and 3 assists. I mean, he was supposed to be that guy who comes in and helps out Dirk Nowitzki, who's getting older. And they brought in Tyson Chandler, and they brought a bunch of pieces to be around their semi-superstar, semi-star Chandler Parsons. So I think he's been a big bust this year. I think he could turn it around because he does have a pretty good core group of guys around him with Ellis. Jameer Nelson's been playing decent this year. They got Devin Harris coming back. Dirk's obviously there. And then Tyson Chandler is having a decent year with them so far. I mean, he had a horrible past couple years with the Knicks, and he's been playing decent so far this year. And so I think he's a big bust overall as far as a player goes. And as far as a team goes, I was expecting a little more out of the New York Knicks. I mean, they didn't have the highest expectations coming in, but I mean, I think if you have a guy like Carmelo Anthony who could drop 30 any night, and you have some decent players around him, I mean, Bargnani's been out. He's a solid player, but I just expected more of them, especially in a weak conference. I mean, they did have some big wins, but I think their record should be better than what it is right now.
Yeah, definitely team-wise, I have to go with the Los Angeles Clippers. The Los Angeles Clippers right now are struggling. They're along the bottom half in the league in terms of rebounding, and that really speaks a lot to me when you're coached by Doc Rivers, who's a defensive-minded coach, and you have two guys who are rebounding machines in Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. So if you're ranked in the bottom half of the league in rebounding, that scares me. And also, this team is packed full of talent with Chris Paul, J.J. Redick, Jamal Crawford, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. And to top it all off, you're coached by one of the best coaches in the game in Doc Rivers, and you're struggling so far this season. That scares me a bit. So I definitely have to go with the Clippers. After all the hoopla that they were going to be the team in L.A. since the Lakers are struggling, and that they were going to make some serious noise in the Western Conference with teams like the Thunder being injury-plagued so far this season. Player-wise, I definitely have to go with Derrick Rose. I mean, Derrick Rose this season, we all thought he was going to come back after playing in the FIBA World Cup. He did pretty well over there in Spain. Then he comes back. He's got all these weapons, Pau Gasol, Joakim Noah, Jimmy Butler, and a great coach in Tom Thibodeau. And it's not the fact that he hasn't produced. When he's been on the floor, he's put up pretty good numbers.
I'm going to cut you off. We do have a call. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hello, my name is Stanley. Did the Eskimos have a chance of winning the CFL Grey Cup?
I really don't know much about the CFL at all, but thanks for the question. If you could bring maybe to the NFL, we may be able to have something to say about that, but I really do not follow the CFL. I'm very sorry, Stanley. But you can continue on.
Back to the NBA. No one watches Canadian football. Sorry, buddy. Back to the NBA. Derrick Rose, he's been injury-plagued all season. I mean, you really... when he's been, like I said earlier, when he's been on the floor, he's produced good numbers, but when he just hasn't been able to play. He's been injury-plagued, hamstring strains, ankle sprains, knee injuries. I mean, what's next? Is this guy just going to puke all over the floor and just, leave? I don't know what this guy's going to do. Derrick Rose, I had so much faith in him, and it's gone.
Oh, wait, really quickly, another team I forgot to mention, the Denver Nuggets in the West. I thought this team was going to do much better than they are. They are getting blown out by teams. It's not even fair for them. I mean, they got a decent point guard in Ty Lawson. Kenneth Faried's there. They have one of the best depths in the front court. They got JaVale McGee, Timothy Mozgov, Darrell Arthur's there, Danilo Gallinari. They got such a depth in that front court, and they cannot bring it together. They signed Aaron Aflalo. This team should have been much better. I mean, they are in the Western Conference, but I just expected more out of them. Jeremy, do you have any?
If I was going to look for a team, I mean, they didn't have as much expectations coming into this year as they did last year. Maybe a team like the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, last year when they were going to get Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, they were expected to be the next team in the Eastern Conference to dethrone Miami or whatever it is. But obviously, they didn't measure up to that, and they didn't get Paul Pierce back in this offseason. Obviously, he went to Washington, but I think that they're better than what their record shows. But obviously, I was really never a fan of Darren Williams. I felt like he just never had a passion to win, like some of the stars around the league do. He always seems like he's just going through the motions when it comes to basketball. And Joe Johnson, I feel like, has that fire, but I don't think he's a vocal type of leader that team needs. So I think that could be why they are struggling. It seems like Brook Lopez has always got some sort of foot or ankle injury, whatever it is. So overall, I think that team could be better than they are right now. But obviously, they're not, just because of where their record is. For a player, I mean, you got to go with Derrick Rose just because of he doesn't play.
That's your boy, Derrick Rose.
Players play. Derrick Rose doesn't even put on the jersey half of the time, whether it's a sprained ankle, whatever it is. This guy was supposed to be, the star. He was supposed to come back and lead this Bulls team to the 1 seed in the East and
guess who's
challenge
leading
the
that team
Cavaliers.
right now? My man, Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, Jimmy
21
Butler's
points a game so
well.
far this season. All right.
Absolutely.
Keep going.
But Derrick Rose, I think, is definitely the flop of the year. The flop of the last 3 years, wins an MVP, and then basically goes AWOL for.
Is this
for
a
the
Darko
Chicago
Milicic
Bulls.
part 2 here?
This is Darko Milicic
No.
right here. When he plays well, but players play. He doesn't show up. He literally doesn't show up. So it's just hard to continue to have expectations for this guy. And he's going around saying he's worried about his life after basketball, but where would this guy be without basketball? You have to focus on what's happening now and where you are and where you're going to be in the next 5 years. And I don't think that's going to be out of basketball. I think he's still going to be in basketball in 5 or 6 years. He's still
playing in the D League.
I mean, if he can't stay healthy, he's going to be playing in the D League. But anyways,
he would dominate the D League.
Oh, sure.
Forget about it.
He put up like 50 and like 20.
Anyways, we'll move on. Talk about an early season MVP. Overall, I think it's hard to go against LeBron James, but I mean, let's see if you guys can come up with someone else.
Holden, do you want to kick
Sure.
this one off? Or?
Definitely. I always love the NBA MVP topic because a lot of people always throw out names like last year someone said, "Oh, Kevin Love's going to be the MVP," and I can't argue with you if you're saying from the point that Kevin Love produces numbers because last season he does. But really, the NBA MVP award is a culmination of producing great stats and also being on a team that's winning. And for that reason, if I would just say just purely stats this year, Anthony Davis. I mean, this guy's putting up monstrous statistics. He's putting up numbers similar to what Kevin Love does in Minnesota. So for numbers reason, I'll have to say Anthony Davis, but obviously he's not going to get it because the Pelicans are struggling this year. I thought they would put it together this year, but they're still showing signs of coming together as a young team. But if we have to say for an established player on a winning team, that's a tough one. I mean, I was going to go with Carmelo. The Knicks are struggling. I was going to go with LeBron. The Cavs can't seem to put it together. Right now, I really do feel it's sort of up in the air right now in terms of an NBA MVP candidate. If I really do have to go with one, I'm going to go with Steph Curry. Steph Curry's putting up some pretty good numbers this year for a pretty stellar Golden State team. But otherwise, I can't really think of a premier player on a premier team.
Right now, I agree with you that an MVP does have to win games, but I think there's 2 or 3 clear-cut guys of that. If the season ended right now, they'd be the top 3, and that's James Harden on the Rockets, Marc Gasol on the Memphis Grizzlies, and like you mentioned, Stephen Curry on the Golden State Warriors. I mean, James Harden right now is averaging 23, 6, and 6 on a team that's 9-1 right now. Marc Gasol is averaging 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, a block, and a steal a game on a team that's 9-1 right now. And Stephen Curry last night against the Lakers, albeit they were the Los Angeles Lakers and he had Jeremy Lin guarding him, dropped 30 points, 15 assists, and 4 rebounds. And he's been having a monster year such far. So I think those guys would be clear-cut if the season ended right now. But as Jeremy said, it's going to be hard to go against LeBron James. I mean, LeBron just won Eastern Conference NBA Player of the Week this week. And we didn't even mention him in our topics here. And obviously, and even in the West, Curry or Harden didn't win it, or Gasol. It was Damian Lillard who won it this week. So, but I think if the season ended right now, you just got to look at the teams that are 9-1. And I want to say the Warriors are. I think they have 1 or 2 losses too. So all those 3 of those teams are playing very well this year. So those are going to be my top 3 if the season ended today. But I think I think it's going to be either those 3, maybe a guy like LeBron, or maybe even a guy like Carmelo Anthony if the Knicks could pick it up. But those are probably going to be my top 3 front runners as of right now.
I have to disagree with you guys on the idea that an MVP needs to be on a winning team. I mean, I know you really don't see an MVP win that, or a guy win the MVP and not be on a winning team. But I think that the award is for the most valuable player. If he's the most valuable player, regardless of whether his team's winning or losing, he's the most valuable player. He's the best player on the court night in and night out. I mean, Kevin Love last year couldn't have controlled whether he won or lost games because he was the only one on that team that could score, let alone maybe Kevin Martin is, the second best scorer on that team, but we're talking about Kevin Martin here. I think it should go to the best player regardless. I mean, right now, if I had an MVP vote in maybe the NFL, I mean, I think about giving it to J.J. Watt. I think he's the best player on the field when he goes on the field, regardless of who he's playing. So I think if I had a vote, I'd give it to the best player, regardless of if Houston's going to make postseason or not. I believe it should go to whoever is the premier guy, whoever is the guy with, if you had first round, first pick in, a fantasy draft, you would take. If you're building a franchise, who would be the cornerstone? So I think that would be how I would be voting for an MVP. But I think it's hard to go against LeBron James here. I mean, this guy always seems to put up numbers, and it seems like he's trying not to put up numbers in every way possible, whether it be by Kevin Love or we're trying to give the ball to Kevin Love or Kyrie Irving or whatever it is. I think that overall he's just trying to be more of a distributor than he is trying to be a scorer and trying not to take over games like he is, but really that's the best thing for him to do. So I think that even with Kyrie saying, you got to take over the games, you have to be the man for us. So I think overall it's hard to go against LeBron James when the stars on his own team are telling him to take over the game.
I agree with you that the fact that the MVP doesn't necessarily have to be on a winning team. It's just, and I wish it wasn't that way, but it's just for some reason, it's almost like for example last year, like you mentioned, Kevin Love, LaMarcus Aldridge, guys who I think should have won MVP. I mean, Kevin Durant had a monster year, but it's almost like they couldn't just because, their team didn't do well. But I agree with you in the sense that it shouldn't be down to that, but I think the fact is it just, for some reason in the NBA and in most sports, it just happens to be like that, which I don't agree with. I think it should be the best player on the court. I think in my opinion, it just happens to be the guys I mentioned as of right now, and their team happen to be winning. But I think there should be a change where the best guy in the court, even stats-wise, like if a guy's dropping monster points, even if he's on a bad team, like it's still hard to do, and especially if you're on a bad team, because last year, who did the other teams have to worry about defensively besides Kevin Love?
You're setting up just to stop him.
He was getting all the defensive thrown at him, and he still managed to drop 26, 13 boards, and 4 assists. So it's a tough one, but honestly, I think LeBron will probably wind up winning this year again. But
and you look at even if you were in another sport like the MLB. I mean, John Carlos Stanton, the guy who got this big deal, was having incredible stats in this. I mean, he was leading in before he had his injury where he got hit in the face with the pitch. He was leading in home runs. I believe he was second or third in RBIs and second or third in batting average, and he's barely into discussion because the Miami Marlins aren't a relevant team. And if he's the best player in the league, he's the best player in the league. He's the most valuable player, regardless of his team's winning or losing. And especially in a sport like baseball, where it's not like a basketball or a football, where you can maybe win a game without having the greatest teammates on you. I mean, you look at LeBron James gets all the way to the finals against the Spurs, and I believe it was 2007, and he has basically no teammates. So
I think
hard
there's
to say that.
A lot of leagues split it up into two distinctions, from most valuable player to best player. Like in today's NBA, a lot of people admit that LeBron James is the best player in the NBA, but the MVP last year was Kevin Durant. And I was watching Inside the NBA the other night, and Kenny Smith said something like a couple years ago when Steve Nash won the MVP, a lot of critics thought that he deserved the MVP because when he was injured and out for like 10 games, the Suns went like 2-8, and when he came back, they all of a sudden were back in the playoff race. So I think the NBA MVP awards, the NFL MVP awards, those awards are skewed towards guys who are doing well on really good teams, because then they can use the argument that if you take them away, all of a sudden that team's success evaporates.
But you could say the same thing about the Timberwolves last year with Kevin Love. If you take away Kevin Love, how many games does that team win?
Well, they were still below 500 either way.
But it's still the same exact thing.
But they might
They're
win
still
8
losing.
games.
They might, if they won 24 games last year, they might win 8 games without Kevin Love. It's still taking away wins.
I mean, I think that's what makes the difference between really good players like LeBron James and Kevin Love. When you remove Kevin Love from the Timberwolves this year, they're still doing terrible compared to last year. They didn't make the playoffs. Whereas when LeBron James left Cleveland to go to Miami, Cleveland, they were one of the bottom 3 teams in the East, whereas now he's back on the team, and now they're contending for a title.
But you could make a similar argument. Whereas
Minnesota would have been the same exact team. They would have been the same. I mean, if Minnesota doesn't gain all the...
I'm saying, Kevin Love was...
It's the same
when
situation.
Kevin Love was on Minnesota, they weren't making the playoffs. Now he's not in Minnesota, they're still not going to make the playoffs. So his impact wasn't that great as comparison to a great player like LeBron James.
We do have a call-in. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Yeah, hello. Who do you think is the better team on MLG? Envy or Denial?
Ooh.
I'm sorry, what is this?
MLG,
talk.
Major League Gaming.
I
I don't know what you guys know about MLG, but I do know a little bit. I mean, I guess I can talk on the topic a little bit.
it's Optic.
I'd probably. Optic does
It's
have.
Dove Clan.
Optic
No,
does
it's
have
Dove
2
Clan.
really good squads, but I think Envy would be the better out of these teams. I mean, you have JCap and Merc who are in an AR dominant game in Advanced Warfare. I think that these 2 guys are going to have great roles. I think they're going to do well. Obviously, Black Ops 2, they were some of the best ARs in the game. And then
who's up for most improved player?
Obviously,
Rookie of the year, Coach of the year.
Obviously, they had Nameless as well, and then they drop Formal and pick up Clayster from Optic. So obviously, there's your Optic reference.
What about Dove Clan? You're
Clan
not mentioning
is
Dove
not
Clan.
even in MOG, Justin.
All right.
Get Dove out of here. But regardless, I think Envy's a better squad just because they have 3 of the same guys, and then picking up Clayster, I think he's just as good, if not better, than Formal. So I think Envy's definitely the better team compared to Denial. But we'll get back to
our nice discussion
previous
here about
conversation.
Right. I mean, like I said earlier, I think that's where the distinction comes in to split the debate argument between who's the best player and who's the MVP. If we're talking MVP, I'm talking about a guy where if you take him off that team, they're going to go from number 1 to number 10. Whereas best player, it's going to be guys like LeBron James and Kevin Durant, who just put up monster numbers night in and night out. So I think that's where the real discussion splits.
If you look at a guy like Derrick Rose, for example, I could see both sides of those arguments with him that apply to him. Back when Derrick Rose went down with his ACL injury, and then they had the 76ers when it happened in Game 1, that team was supposed to possibly compete with the Heat and go to the NBA Finals. When he went down, that team lost the next 4. Or was it 5? They lost to the Philadelphia 76ers.
But they still made the postseason.
But then the same at the next year, when Derrick Rose wasn't playing, they still did make the postseason, and they made the 4th seed and gave a Heat run for their money with Nate Robinson at the point. So I think in that situation it supports both sides of the argument. But overall, I think if you take a guy out, like for example, if you take LeBron off, say LeBron's up for an MVP. If you take him off the Cavs right now, I think this team would still be probably a top 3 seed in the East with Love and Kyrie. I mean that's a tough one. Or even say you take Stephen.
But we're considering the East, where it's
if you take Stephen Curry off the Warriors, I think they're still a decent team. And if you take James Harden off the Rockets,
You can't base a player based on the team they're on because every team is different. Every team's offense is completely different. I mean, the Warriors' offense may revolve around Stephen Curry, where the Cavaliers' offense may not completely revolve around LeBron James. So if he gets hurt and comes out of the lineup, they might still be able to succeed because they're not depending on him as much as a team like the Warriors is. And just because a team is depending on you doesn't make you the most valuable player. It just means you're the cornerstone of the franchise at that moment.
that most valuable player, that means you're the most valuable to their success in that definition. I mean, if you take, like, when LeBron was winning MVPs in Cleveland, once he left Miami to Miami, Cleveland dropped off. Same thing. If you take Carmelo Anthony off the Knicks right now.
It's not the most valuable team award.
It's the most valuable player. I'm talking about.
But it's not the most. It's not the most
I think the award goes to the player.
It's the most valuable award to the best player.
No, because that's where I'm saying the argument splits into. You're talking about giving the MVP award to just the best player in general.
That's who it is.
I'm talking about the NBA and the NFL are making decisions to give the NBA MVP award to really good players whose success with the team determines their stature, their ranking. So guys like Kevin Durant, if you take him off the Thunder, there's going to be a huge drop-off. If LeBron leaving Cleveland, there was a huge drop-off. I think that's how the NBA is determining.
But if LeBron left Cleveland right now, like Justin said, they would still be a playoff team. Even if they were in the Western Conference, if you have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love on the same team, that's still a playoff team. Regardless of it's East, West, whatever it is, that's still a team that's going to contend for a postseason. So do we take LeBron James out of the MVP debate because he's on a good team that could play well without him?
I think you have to.
I don't think that's.
Guys like Kevin Love, guys like.
But if LeBron drops, 28-7-7, like he's gonna win MVP regardless.
LeBron, even though the Cavs would win on without LeBron James, Kyrie Irving is saying right now, LeBron James, you're the man. You have to step up for us. But if he was to go down, they could still be successful.
I'm no doubt they'll be successful, but I'm just saying the NBA is operating upon a principle that they're going to award the MVP title to a guy who's producing monster statistics, while at the same time is a key reason to the success of his current team. So you're seeing like LeBron in Cleveland years ago. I mean, Kevin Love had 26 points and 12 rebounds last year. Why didn't they give him the MVP? It's because the Minnesota Timberwolves were a below 500 team, and it's been warranted since because Kevin Love has left that team, and they're predicted to not make the playoffs for another year. So, I mean, that's where I really value my MVP
It's the sad
candidate.
truth in the NBA that it does happen like that. I agree that it should be the best player regardless of teams, but because if you look at the history, I mean, it has been the best overall player regardless of team, but it's unfortunate that I think it should be
the best. How do you determine success for a team that's predicted to not make the postseason?
So
like, what is
counting
successful
out
for that
for
team?
MVP,
So you're basically, at the beginning of last season, counting Kevin Love out of the MVP race because his team's not going to make the playoffs.
Well, basically, because...
But a 25-win season might be successful for the Timberwolves. They might look back and say, we had a good year.
Well, expectations are that a team will have a good season if they make it to the playoffs. I mean, that's a successful team.
But
that's saying you were a top 16
16
team in the NBA that year.
But last season, did you think the Timberwolves were going to make the postseason?
I think they had a lot of injuries, and Kevin Love, I mean, this is a difficult topic. I mean, I think you truly evaluate a player's worthiness as an MVP on two merits. They're putting up really good statistics, but at the same time, you can see their impact on games. Not through just statistics, but actually watching the games through the eye test, and you're seeing their impact on a team. And for that reason, Kevin Love, I mean, if you want to break it down, he's a really good player. I like him. 26-12. That's nothing to laugh at.
The Wolves did have a decent season last year.
They had a decent season.
They were contending for that 8th spot for up until the last week of the NBA.
You put him in.
So,
I know, but
it wasn't
Kevin
that they
Love,
had a bad record.
You look at the guys around him. He had pretty good guys around him. Ricky Rubio's no scrub. Kevin Martin's no scrub.
They had one of the worst defenses in the league.
Nikola Pekovic is no scrub.
We're going to compare those guys to the Russell Westbrook, the Serge Ibaka, the guys that Kevin Durant had on his team.
Right, but Kevin Durant last year was by himself. He had Ibaka, but Westbrook was out for a healthy portion of the year. He had to carry that team, which was a large reason he put up silly statistics like 32 points a game.
If he's the MVP, he should be able to do that.
Right, and that's why he won the MVP, because not only was he putting up silly numbers, they were also winning a bunch of games.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is, Kevin Love, if you put Kevin Love in a Miami Heat jersey instead of LeBron James, last year, or put him in an Oklahoma City jersey instead of Kevin Durant, is that team win as many games as they do, or did the Miami Heat make the championship like they did?
Wait, so you're asking if I swap KD and Kevin Love,
or does OKC win as many games as they did?
Oh no, they don't. Not with Kevin Love.
So then, how are you comparing them based on their wins?
Well, what I'm saying is this is where
I think if you compare.
You're saying we should just judge them on the numbers they put up. And that's a good argument. I can't say someone's a scrub.
No, it's not the numbers they put up. But it's if they're the best player on the court, and that doesn't mean numbers-wise. That means if every night they go out, they're the best player that steps foot on the court. Because LeBron James statistically,
then was Kevin Love the best player on the court every night he went out?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying LeBron James is the best player on the court every night he goes out,
and it's warranted because
he may have 3 or 4 points per game less than Kevin Love has, or 2 rebounds less than.
Right, and I'm not saying he's the worst player.
If he's the best player on the court, he is the MVP, regardless of stats, regardless of wins. If when he goes out, there's no one better than him, he's the MVP.
Well, if LeBron James this year puts up 19 and 7 and the Cavs are the 8th seed in the East, do you give him the MVP?
He's not going to do that. LeBron James isn't going to drop 19 and 7
right,
for an entire
and
season.
I think it's fair to say LeBron is the best player because time and time again he's won the MVP while at the same time always being on a team that's made it to the finals or deep into the playoffs.
I think instead of comparing this to saying Kevin Love got ripped off, I think you could almost say, look at LaMarcus Aldridge. I mean, he led his team to the 5th seed in that. To the 5th seed, they upset the Rockets. I mean, the MVP was decided before that. But this guy, I mean, for the longest time, everybody was considering him MVP, and I wouldn't say he got ripped off. And he did have a solid team around him with Damian Lillard, but for the most part, it was just him dominating.
I know LaMarcus Aldridge is a great player, but he had really good pieces around him. He had Damian Lillard, he had Nicholas Batum, whereas you go down to Oklahoma City, where it was just Kevin Durant and a little bit of Serge Ibaka. Russell Westbrook was out for like 3/4 of the year. So Kevin Durant was...
But, I mean, Reggie Jackson did step up there.
Stepped up, played well.
Right, but Reggie Jackson is not Russell Westbrook.
But he did. But the numbers are
but
like
the
there.
thing is, a lot of people always say Russell Westbrook was holding Kevin Durant back, and you put a average point guard in Reggie Jackson,
who's going to pass the ball,
who's going to give Kevin Durant more looks. I mean, maybe that offense worked better for Oklahoma City than the offense with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant did, and that may have opened eyes in the organization or whatever it was. But the thing that I'm not understanding with what you're saying is, in 1 second you're saying that the team around him matters and should affect it, but then you're saying he doesn't have a team, and now that should affect it as well.
What I'm saying is there's two criteria for me when you want to give a guy the NBA MVP. One, he has to put up good numbers. The second is you have to evaluate his effort level and how much is he responsible for a team's success, his win share. I think Kevin Love last year had like a really low win share, whereas in comparison to LeBron James, who had a really high win share. So, to me, it's about how much do you contribute to a team's success. LeBron James, it's warranted. He puts up monster numbers, but at the same time, he's on a team that's always competing for an NBA title. But then you look at a guy like Kevin Love, he puts up huge numbers, but his team doesn't make the playoffs. So that's where it really splits apart for me, where you decide if a guy's an MVP
There is
candidate.
an ongoing debate in the NBA whether should it be just decided on pure stats? Should it be decided on how good the team does? Should it be a combination of both? Should it be, as Jeremy said, every single night that guy's on the court, that's the best player on the court?
I mean, for example, if Chris Paul this year puts up like 25 and 8 in comparison to a guy like Kevin Durant this year who puts up the numbers he put up last year, if he puts up like 28 and 9, I mean, that's going to be tough because you look at the Los Angeles Clippers and the amount of talent they have on their team.
I don't know if you could look at stats, though, because when
can't
Derrick Rose won, he only averaged 24 and a half a game.
Yeah, you can't look at the team they have because they can't control that. That's not what defines what's a good player, just who's around him. Because if you put Kevin Durant in the Los Angeles Clippers organization, he's probably averaging less points, getting less of whether it's assists or rebounds, because he's going to have to share the ball more. So because he has a monopoly in OKC and he could shoot as much as he wants because Russell Westbrook's injured and whatnot, now he's the man because he did it by himself.
No, what I'm saying is that there comes a fine line where you have to properly gauge how much a player is contributing to a team's success. For example, if Chris Paul, if he averages like 25 and 7 this year, I probably don't give him the MVP because you look at guys on that team. He has a Blake Griffin, he has a DeAndre Jordan, he has a Jamal Crawford, and he has a JJ Redick. He's still got
those 25 points and those 7 assists.
I know, but he's got so many weapons. And so many guys to keep defenses honest. They're not going to all crowd on him. They're going to defend the other players. Whereas in comparison to a guy like Kevin Durant, who's really, last year, Russell Westbrook was out. Serge Ibaka's not a scorer. Kendrick Perkins, I'm sorry, is he the next Shaquille O'Neal? I don't think so.
James
he was the only guy.
MVPs because he had Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh on his team when he won in Miami.
Well, Dwayne Wade wasn't the type of player.
Dwayne Wade got there. The first year. Right, when he first got there, Dwayne Wade was still a top 5 player in the league.
And what happened? LeBron didn't win the MVP last year. It was Derrick Rose.
Right.
But Dwayne Wade,
but you're saying he shouldn't have even been in the running because he has stars around him? Then you're almost saying that Kevin Love deserves it because there's no one around him and he's running the show.
I know, but what I'm saying is you're not forgetting my criteria here. It's stats and it's also the success of the team.
But if you take Chris Paul off of the Clippers, that team is nothing.
I don't know.
He runs that team. He is the field
right.
general.
But if you
He's
take
the
away
Peyton Manning of that team.
if you take away Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Jamal Crawford, is that team as good as it was?
That's a completely different team.
Right. So, like I said, you have to properly gauge how much each player's contribute.
I think he still puts up those numbers.
I don't think so.
If anything, he puts up more.
Regardless, we do have a caller. Oh, maybe not. Nick, we haven't trouble.
Zach.
Zach, I'm sorry. All right. Anyways, we're going to move on. Let's see, what can we go to? If you just recently called, you can call back, or I guess we just disconnected. Sorry about that. But anyways, we're going to move on. We'll talk about our favorite sporting event to watch. Obviously, what's your favorite sport to watch, basically? Hold on, we'll start with you.
For me, it's pretty easy. Starting out a couple years ago, for me, I just loved the NFL season, especially the Super Bowl. But then I realized really all I like to do is watch the Super Bowl. I could care less about the regular season. And lately, I've been starting to watch a lot more college football, especially the SEC. I don't really care for the Big Ten or any other conferences. I really, on Saturdays, I'll only watch SEC games because for me, it's just the level of play is spectacular. There's so many competitive teams. I love the SEC right now.
Yeah, they did call in back. We're having some phone malfunctions here. Continue on.
Like I said, the SEC, especially this year with so many competitive teams, especially in the SEC West, and the new college football playoff, it feels like every week's the playoffs, and every week, every single game that happens in college football is so important in determining which 4 teams make it into that playoff. I just love college football. They're all amateurs. They're all trying hard to try to make it into the NFL.
All right.
Jeremy, you just click it once.
I know, I did, but it was still...
Hello?
Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hello? How are you going?
What can we do for you?
I just wanted to know what you guys think about Hulk Hogan going back to Raw.
I don't watch wrestling. I don't.
We don't watch wrestling. Wrestling. This is sports talk. We talk sports, buddy. Wrestling is not a sport. I don't know if I'm breaking your heart. I don't know if Justin's breaking your heart. Jeremy's breaking your heart. Wrestling's not a sport. They fake punch each other.
About wrestling.
I think come on.
Hulk Hogan is one of the greatest WWE superstars of all time. So him going back to Raw, I think that's a big deal.
It's like if Optic left MLG and then they came back.
It's similar. It's almost similar to like Michael Jordan returning to going to the Bobcats. A similar thing like that, where just an absolute stud in his time comes back. He's a legend in the WWE.
Absolutely.
And I'm not BSing this. Like, this is legit stuff. Like, when he returned back, I forget what WrestleMania it was, and saved that. I forget what that guy's name was. Hornswoggle. I don't know, that little guy. He saved him. Came back in Los Angeles. The crowd was going nuts. This guy's just a legend. So I'm happy with anything to do with the WWE as long if it involves Hulk Hogan. But
what's with these crazy questions tonight? Like first we get a question about Canadian football, then we get the gaming question, now we got the Hulk Hogan question. What's next? Who's going to win the PBA bowling title this year?
We're going to talk about which Optic team's better.
Someone's going to call in and talk about NASCAR. Like, what's next?
So let's go back. Did you finish your college football? Yeah,
definitely college football for me. It's an amateur sport. They're all trying hard, trying to make it into the NFL. The SEC is so competitive. The SEC feels like I'm watching the NFL. These guys are just huge, massive animals, and they're so talented. It is crazy. The world of recruiting in college football is crazy. It feels like every recruit is just analyzed and scrutinized down to the finest detail. I love the draft. College sports, that's where it's at for me.
Okay. There's absolutely no comparison to the NBA, in my opinion. I'm sorry. If I have the NBA League Pass. I watch almost every single game every night.
Do you watch the D League?
With the I'll watch
D League's where it's at.
I'll watch D League highlights, but
D League's where it's
I'd
at.
rather watch an NBA preseason game than most NFL games, to be honest with you.
God.
Not that I like NFL plays, but I just don't have the patience to watch a whole game. I love watching basketball. I watch every game with the exception of the Spurs games because they blow out teams, and I don't want to watch that. But for the most part, I love watching everybody. There's nothing better than the Sunday countdown games when it's, Knicks and Nets. Classic games, Knicks Celtics, back when Paul Pierce hit that dagger three. I remember Jeremy was over my house. We were watching it. Everybody was going nuts. The NBA Finals doesn't get any better than that with, game winners, the Ray Allen step back three in Game 6. Even just any regular season game, you go back to the other night, Milwaukee Bucks, Brandon Knight with the drives, puts up an and-one layup to secure the game. There's big blocks, big plays, LeBron going alley-oops. There's just no comparison. I just love watching the league. I can't wait for it every night. Fantasy, whatever. I just don't think there's a comparison.
Justin, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
How hard are those players going every night? Do you think they're
it
going
depends.
100%?
That's why, that's
it depends,
why,
though, because
college basketball is more fun to me. It's a shorter season, and they're getting
college basketball is the best in March Madness.
The thing with college basketball is the guys they're going to give it their hardest because those guys, they're not going to the NBA. They don't have to worry about getting injured. A lot of those guys, like, the Scoop Jardines, the 4-year players who are great college players, but they're not NBA ready.
But a lot of them are trying to get into the NBA.
But, there's a lot of guys who they could try their hardest out. I always find it funny where, Tyrus Thomas averaged 12 and 8 in his freshman year, and he was a 4th overall pick. But then you look at guys like C.J. Fair averaging 15-7 last year at Syracuse, and he didn't even get drafted. So it just has to do with NBA readiness. And as far as guys giving it 100% all the time, I think in the 4th quarter they're going 100%. I mean, you could make the argument that the older players and the veterans, especially towards when you get to the end of the year, when I don't think Ronnie Turiaf's going 100% when the Timberwolves are no shot making the playoffs.
This is the thing I don't like about the NBA. When I was watching the Spurs game the other night when they were playing the I believe it was the Thunder or the Clippers, I forget which team it was. And this was the starting lineup. It was like Tony Parker was out there, so great. He's a great player. At the 2 was Danny Green, in for Manu. Thiago Splitter was out. Tim Duncan was out. And Kawhi was in. I mean, and last year, didn't the Spurs get fined because they basically said, hey, Tim, hey, Manu, hey, Tony, stay in San Antonio. We're going down to Miami to play the Heat. Well, I mean, this is the problem about the NBA and pro sports. A lot of these teams, as a fan, you really want to believe that they're giving their all, and in some cases, that's not true.
I mean, you can make that argument, but especially
you can make that argument for any sport.
I mean, the veteran, and there's 82 games. Like, the NFL, if they played one game a week, I'll bet you big money that the NBA players would go off every single week.
If you look at baseball's even worse. They don't run out ground balls. Like they're jogging on pop fives.
Having fried chicken in the clubhouse.
If the Cleveland Cavaliers played every single game, or could you imagine a team like Lob City would go off? There'd be so many dunks. Like if they played once a week, people would be amped up. That's the difference. Like the NFL, if the NFL played 82 games, I mean you can't compare because of the physicalness. But could you imagine it? Even if they played 2-3 games a week, do you think it would be?
It's definitely a different animal there, but. I think overall, anything in the postseason is better to watch, just because that's when there's no question if guys are going 100%. I mean, postseason baseball is awesome to watch. Honestly, like one of the hardest sports to watch in the regular season, and you're watching teams like the Giants coming out of nowhere from the wild card. I mean, this year in the World Series, you have the Royals and the Giants, two wild card teams. And then basically anything NFL, the playoffs, like those are always crazy games, whatever it is. So there's always just madness going on. And then NBA, I mean, there's just always craziness. I mean, I remember Damian Lillard's game-winning 3 against the Rockets, just always stuff.
And even
that's happening.
LaMarcus dropped 46 that game or something.
Yeah.
Like it was just
there's just always crazy numbers being dropped and whatever it is. So I mean, if I was to pick one sport in general, it'd probably be either a college basketball or college football.
During the March Madness of the playoffs.
Always good. College football, just because it seems like every game matters. It seems like in the NFL sometimes it's not always the best, most important.
Frankly, I mean, if we're going to talk about another one, I'm not joking around. The D League is actually pretty fun to watch.
I'm not watching the D League at any moment.
I'm bored sometimes, so I flip it on, channel surfing, and I'll come on a D League game. I mean, those
guys are trying hard because they're trying to make a team.
The D League is a man's league. Like, you can't be a 19-year-old in the D League and survive. I mean, these guys travel in minivans. They stay in motels. They have to buy their own food. They're buying food at, like, Burger King, and then they have a game. I mean, and these guys are making, like, I think, what was it, like $1,000 to $3,000 a year in comparison to NBA players who are making like $400,000 minimum.
They only make $3,000 a year.
I looked it up the other day. I was watching Jalen Rose and Bill Simmons on the Grantland Basketball Hour, and they were Jalen Rose was talking about how the NBA D League players make anywhere between $3,000 and $8,000 a year.
I don't. You can't live on that.
Exactly, you can't live on that.
Some high schoolers make that much.
Yeah, that's what,
a lot of these guys have.
I could probably make that per year.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. I was so shocked. I was like, that can't be true. And I looked it up, and there's some stories. A lot of these guys work like 2 jobs.
But even WNBA players make like $900,000 a year.
Well, that's why I said the D League. I mean, you watch these games, it looks like they're playing in like conference halls. They're not even playing in like basketball arenas. I mean, it's just really hard to watch. You just hope that some of these guys
they are trying hard because they're trying to make.
Oh my God, they're trying so hard.
But I mean, I can't
say. Lastly,
we
do have one last topic. We're going to go through our college football top 4 for this week. Obviously,
you guys can leave me out of this one. I'm not a big college football fan here.
I'll definitely have to go with, and this is in any order: Alabama, Florida State, Oregon, and I'll have to go Mississippi State.
I agree.
I'm going to go Florida State, even though I can't stand that team. I feel like they don't play anyone. They almost got upset by Miami. But regardless, you have to put them in just because they're undefeated in the ACC. Then I'm going to go with Alabama. I think they're the best team in the nation right now. I don't think anyone's really at that level yet. I'll take Oregon. I was hoping I could see Arizona State possibly pull off an upset in the game against them, but they obviously were upset this week. And then for the 4th spot, I'm gonna keep with Ohio State. I think that what they've done with JT coming in for Braxton Miller has been very, very well for them. What they've been doing, winning games, obviously the big win against Michigan State. So I think that that's definitely going to be what's going to help get them in. If they win the conference championship, I think that's definitely going to boost them in. And you look at maybe a team like Baylor sneaking in if they win the conference championship, which they will if it comes down head-to-head between them and TCU, and then possibly TCU still sneaking in. So really there's
my team,
6
TCU.
teams.
I would love to see Baylor, but the Big 12
there.
doesn't have a conference championship. They just have a regular season.
It's going to be the conference championship. It's going to go to head-to-head, and then Baylor will be crowned it. But anyways, that's all we have for this edition. I'm Jeremy Farina.
I'm Holden Pirelli.
And I'm Justin Palero.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.